Welcome, everybody. My name is Rick Truer, and I serve Calvin University as the Director of Alumni and Community Relations. And we're so glad to have you here for another Facebook Live interview with two of our amazing alums today. We're going to be talking with Kari and Benjamin David in Uganda, and the work that they're doing there with TwoHope Speaks. Ben is a 2012 media production major and is the co-founder and country director at TwoHope Speaks. And Kari is a 2013 graduate in speech pathology and serves as the executive director and speech therapist at TwoHope Speaks as well. So we're excited to talk with them very shortly, but first we want to tell you about a couple things that are coming up. Registration for the January series is now live. As we had mentioned before, it is going to be completely virtual this year, so you'll be able to watch on whatever device you have available to you, but you do need to register ahead of time. So please go ahead and you can start registering now. You'll be getting a daily email if you would like to remind you when the speeches go live, and also to give you a link to watch the speech that day. So register in advance. We'll leave that address for the registration in the comments below for you, so make sure you check that out. December 16th is going to be our last Facebook Live for the year. We'll be stepping away from our format of interviewing alumni to talk with Christy Potter and with John Whitfleet. Christy's from the January series, and John Whitfleet is from the Worship Institute at Calvin. And we're going to be talking to them about the January series and about the Worship Symposium. Since both of those are going to be virtual this year, you will be able to participate wherever you are as well. So to find out more about the January series and about the Worship Symposium, make sure you tune in to Facebook Live on the 16th of December, and you'll learn more about it then. So we're looking forward to having them talk on the 16th. Because we will be broadcasting the January series and the symposium during the month of January, we're going to be taking a break from our Facebook Live interviews during that month. So we will return to this format again in February. Each Sunday during Advent, Calvin will be releasing a service of lessons and carols from featuring Calvin University choirs. Last week is already online, so make sure you go back and look at that one if you haven't seen that yet. They are on the university or on the Worship Institute's YouTube page, and we'll put a link to the worship services and to the YouTube page in the comments below, so make sure you check that out. But now let's get to today's guests, Kari and Ben. We're so glad that you could join us. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi. So good to be here. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we're so glad you're here too. And because you are in Uganda, we are recording this live. So unfortunately, we won't be able to take any questions in the comment section today. We'll hopefully, if people have comments and questions for you, perhaps you can get to those later on and look at them and respond on Facebook if you'd like. So. But you'll also be able to read more about the David story in the upcoming issue of Spark, which is our alumni magazine, and that's going to be hitting your mailbox very soon, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. Or if you receive it electronically, we'll be sending you an email once that is released as well. But to start, I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to start TwoHope Speaks.
Yeah. So going back to our days at Calvin, Ben and I met there, and then to shorten the story, we got married and then lived in Michigan for a couple of years, and then found out about a huge need for therapy services for people with disabilities living in Uganda, where Ben is from. And so we prayed about what God was calling us to do, prayed that he would raise up somebody, not us, to go move to Uganda.
Because it was a huge need. Because the director of the orphanage where I grew up called us, and he told us they had two kids who have disabilities and they needed speech therapy, and they'd been looking for a speech therapist for 2 years. Yeah. And the one speech therapist that they had found was seeing kids once every year and a half. Mm-hmm. And so we were like, oh, and he was like, well, we've been looking for 2 years, we can't find a speech therapist. But your wife is a speech therapist, right? And I was like, no. She is, but we're not going to do what I think you're going to ask us to do. But he was like, yeah, you guys should think about moving here.
Yeah, so we prayed about it. And over the course of 9 months, God made it very clear that he was calling us to go to Uganda to partner with the orphanage and provide therapy services for around 20 kids in that community. And we've now been in Uganda for 5 years. And in 2017, our phones just kept ringing off the hook, and the need was so great that we were feeling led to start something so that we could reach more families and have a way to train and empower Ugandan speech therapists and share the education with them that we had received from Calvin, so that then they could make an impact in their communities around the country and around East Africa. So yeah, that's kind of how we got to where we are today. And yeah, it's been a wild journey, but God is very faithful and very good. And yeah, it's been exciting.
Yeah, it's amazing to sort of see God's hand in that, right, for you.
Definitely.
Now,
yeah.
Ben, I know you're from Uganda. I think you're living in your old hometown now. Kari, had you been to Uganda before you moved there?
I came once for a 3-week visit in 2013 when we were still dating, and we got engaged when we were here. But other than that, I hadn't been back between that visit and then when we moved here a few years later. So it's a big adjustment.
So since you've graduated, how have you stayed in contact with Calvin and stayed involved with Calvin?
Well, first of all, two of the professors at Calvin in the speech therapy department were on our board. That's Dr. Jill. No, it's Jill.
Jill Bates and Judy Vanderwood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were on our board until Judy retired.
Yeah.
And so they're on our board, and we've been able to, when we've come back, they've been just wonderful resources for us right from the beginning, with their good information about how we can continue to do it. Because right from the beginning, we wanted to do it right and make sure that it is helping people and not hurting people. And so they've been really great resources for us. And then they joined our board. And then we also speak in classrooms to the speech therapy students when we're back.
Yeah, we have the opportunity to come back to the U.S. usually once or twice a year. And during those visits, we come to Calvin and share with the students and talk to them about internship opportunities that they can do during their final placements for grad school. And then also this past year, actually this January, we had our first interim team from Calvin come. And it was a team of speech pathology students, nursing students, pre-med, social work, and a bunch of different majors. And so they came and partnered with us for 2 weeks and got to see what we do on the ground and just be a part of our daily life and make an impact through those partnerships with students here.
Yeah, that's great. So is your work mostly at the orphanage, or does it go out to the broader community as well?
Yeah.
Currently, we're working in 2 districts in Uganda, and that's Kampala district and then Wakiso district, which houses the orphanage. And so our work really, which started out of the orphanage, has in a way gone countrywide because we were working in all kinds of outreach locations around the country.
Yeah. So this past year, we worked with over 700 kids and adults with disabilities. And so we have 13 partner locations where we serve, and those are children's homes, schools, therapy centers, and then we've also opened 3 community clinics where families come and receive rehab services twice a week.
Wow, that's amazing. So, you were talking about the fact that they were having a very hard time finding speech pathologists before you started this program. So how are you finding people to help work in your clinics and help provide the services that you need?
Yeah.
We've actually, so when we started, one of the things that we kept on thinking about is when we're dating, Kari almost broke up with me because she said that both of us were feeling like this was becoming more serious. And so she was like, well, if we ever get married and move to Uganda, I'm going to be absolutely useless. And at that moment, I thought about the fastest thing that I could say so that she wouldn't break up with me. And that was, I'm sure God is going to use it in some way. But deep down, I was like, I had no idea
we had
what you're ever going to do.
how we could use speech therapy.
Yeah, because she didn't speak the language. And so what we did when we were getting started, we're like, well, we don't want any more students who are studying speech therapy to say, you know what, I'm going to be useless in a global perspective. So if I choose to do speech therapy anywhere else, I won't be able to be useful. So, and most of them, I mean, Kari, you tried to do education.
So I looked into studying other things. But in Uganda, we found that there are students here who are studying speech pathology at the local university, but they don't have the mentorship and supervision that they needed to be able to practice well and make an impact in the lives of their clients, because they just weren't equipped with experience and tools and evidence-based practice to be able to do that. And so what we do is we hire Ugandan speech therapists who are new from the university, and then we do a 9-month clinical fellowship with them, like what we would do in the US. And during those 9 months, we train them and provide them with mentorship and supervision and feedback so that they can develop their clinical skills and then be able to serve around the country.
Yeah, and then we have a internship program as well for students that are attending university in the US.
Yeah.
And so what they do is that they come and then they get the cultural education, and then TwoHope Speaks, they help us continue to provide these services in the communities where we serve. And it doesn't cost the organization any money. And so that way we developed a program, volunteer program that is not about having people come and see poverty in the world, but then it lets people come and use the gifts that they're learning from school to benefit people in a real world concept in the world, in a way that they're not that is being useful and helping people reach their full potential. And then it also helps them have the services that they otherwise would not have had. Because a lot of the people in Uganda that have disabilities might never get the services that they need to live to their fullest potential. And so we kind of developed this program to help get those services to the people that need them.
Well, that's great. So how did you go about starting a nonprofit in Uganda? Like, what were your steps? And imagining this was all new for you. So.
So Hope Speaks is registered in the US as a 501c3. And then we're also registered in Uganda as a local organization. And being that I'm Ugandan, it came with its challenges, but then having Ugandan citizenship for me kind of made the process a little easier. And so because foreign person cannot start an organization here. And so we had to pretty much find ways. It took way too long to get it registered, but through our friends and contacts and somebody who knows someone, we were able to get it done.
Yeah.
That's great. So what's been the result of your ministry since you started it?
Yeah, so we have seen communities transformed and people's lives being changed through speech therapy. And once we got here, we realized that it wasn't just about speech therapy, but that these families were facing so many challenges that needed a more holistic approach, so that the kids that we were serving and the adults who had had strokes and traumatic brain injuries could thrive. And so we changed our approach and developed a holistic model. And so now we serve families through speech and language therapy, feeding therapy, and we also have social workers on staff who counsel the families and disciple them and meet the spiritual needs that they're facing as well. Because we realized that when kids were coming in, they were faced with a really heavy stigma because of their disability. And oftentimes this was blamed on the mom, saying that she did something wrong, that God was punishing her, or there was some reason that she was the cause of this child's disability. And so they come in weighted down with this guilt and shame that the community is putting on them, saying that they are cursed, and we get to share with them about the hope of Christ and share with them that their child was made in the image of God with a purpose, and just help them see that hope for their child's future and for their future too, as the parent of a child with special needs. And so we've really seen these communities rally around families through advocacy work, and really support them and start to see the value in people of all abilities.
Yeah, and working within these communities, we decided to just leave the kids in their own communities, because then the community, a lot of the times when they're walking past our clinics, they ask, why is it that what are you guys doing? And then we get to explain, you know what, we're working with kids with disabilities. And because kids with disabilities in Uganda are the most marginalized in all of society, a lot of the times the question that follows is, why would you be working with them? And so once we get to share the reason as to why we work with these kids and how the love of Christ really does compel us to work with these kids, a lot of the times they answer with, oh, my neighbor has a child, let me go bring them. And so within the communities that we've seen like chairmen, those are the community leaders, actually go out into the homes and bring the moms. And we've seen moms just get up. One mom that we were seeing has been a champion mom within the community, that she ended up bringing in a lot of the moms to our clinic. And she even found a child that had been hidden away for 13 years. And so having those clinics within those communities has helped really just rally the community to be able to support these moms and their children, so that they can thrive, and then let them, in a way, give them a voice. Because a lot of times we find these moms trying to hide away their kids because they think they've been told that their child is a curse and that their mom is blamed for it. And so they make sure that nobody sees or hears from that child. But once we've been in these communities, we've seen kids literally be brought out of hiding. So it has been really wonderful to see.
Yeah, it sounds like it's super rewarding work.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So what's brought you the most joy since you started Hope Speaks?
We each have our own.
I'd say for me, from the therapy side of things, it's seeing parents develop that relationship and that connection with their child through communication, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, and getting to witness kids saying mama for the first time after years of not having that connection and not thinking that their child understands them. But just helping them bridge that gap and build that relationship has been something that's brought so much joy. And yeah, it's a really humbling experience to be a part of that.
And I think for me, as being a Ugandan, what has brought me the most joy is just watching these communities rally around these kids, because finally they get it. You know, the first times that we walk into these communities, people are talking about these kids as them. You know, they're talking about, oh, that kid, because in Uganda there's no there's a word for a child with disabilities, but most of the time they're referred to as a thing, you know, and they're looked at as something that will never be useful. And sometimes we even hear that from parents who are talking in front of their child, like, oh, this kid will never really amount to anything. And so like watching day by day, working with these families, and then seeing the families and then seeing the communities absolutely get it, has just been so rewarding. And it's I keep saying it's amazing to see, because it almost feels surreal. Comparing it from the first day that we walk into these communities to the day that they're finally like, you know what, like, I get it, you know, and I want to help more kids within my community, and I want to get out and reach more parents. Like, what can I do? And usually the moms are who just spur this on, where they're like, well, what can I do? I want to do this. I want to help other moms. Like, I have this I have this skill. Could we train that mom? Could we do this? Let's help that mother. And just watching moms come together and watching the community again rally around them has been so life-giving.
Yeah, it's amazing. Can you talk a little bit about what your Calvin experience was like and how it helped prepare you for the work you're doing today?
Yeah.
I think for me, I remember at Calvin, the one thing that kept coming back and back was looking at things from, now I'm forgetting the word, looking at the world critically, and not shying away from a problem. I get in so much trouble because I tend to overcommit. And so that has been because we were always taught that, hey, problems are there because somebody has to do something about it, And so what I learned from Calvin is to always look at a problem and then try to figure out ways of how to solve it in a way that not only solves the problem and helps the person, but then in a way that really does point that person to Christ. So trying and just getting that experience has helped us kind of develop the programs that we develop. And that's really the heart behind everything that we've done in Uganda. And it has always been, okay, how is Christ glorified in all of this? Not Ben and Kari, but then when people see Hope Speaks, who do they see? And then when we reach into these communities, when people see us or when people hear about the services that we provide, who do they see? And it's been great.
Yeah. I think for me, Calvin really shaped me in helping me see how my career could also be a ministry. Because when I was at Calvin, I almost dropped out of the Speech Path program 3 times because I was also feeling called to missions, but I had no idea how God would be able to use me as a speech pathologist in that type of setting. And so I thought I had to choose either one or the other, either studying religion or studying speech pathology. But through Calvin and through the mentorship of our professors who were doing work internationally, I was able to see, and more looking back, how I could use speech pathology to make a kingdom impact around the world. And so I think that's what shaped me in the greatest way. And also to what Ben said about just using the skills and the resources in the community that we now have access to think creatively and solve problems in new and unique ways, even when they seem completely overwhelming.
Yeah, so you've touched on this a little bit, but you know that Calvin's mission is to equip students to think deeply, act justly, and live wholeheartedly as Christ's agents of renewal in the world. So how do you feel that you're living out that mission in your day-to-day work?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think for us, we're passionate about Jesus. We're passionate about sharing the love of Christ. We're passionate about helping people find their voice and speaking up for the marginalized, like it says to do in Proverbs. And that really drives us to do what we do every day. And that's the reason behind our passion for starting Hope Speaks, for empowering Ugandan speech therapists, for changing the culture and the story of disabilities here and hopefully around East Africa in the future.
Yeah, and it has really mottoed us to, ultimately it's not about us. It's about God, and it's about we kept on going back and forth, and we're like, well, if it's going to be about Ben and Kari, we don't want to do it, and yes, it's changing lives. Yes, it is helping kids live to their fullest potential. Yes, it's helping kids connect to their parents for the first time. Yes, it's helping communities come together. It is we've seen families that were broken up, finally coming back together because the dad came back into the picture because they had left when the mom gave birth to a child with disabilities. Yes, it has been about that, but ultimately, it has always been and will always be, who do people see when we're doing all of this work? And then when the parents, one day, I'll tell this story. Our volunteers came back they'd gone into a family's home in the slums where we work, and this mom, fully dressed up in her hijab, and the child just kept crying and could not be consoled. And fully dressed in her hijab, this mom started singing, "Jesus loves me, this I know." And finally, like when they came back and shared that story, I was like, yes, like that's it, you know? It is seeing a mom dressed up in their hijab, singing about who we sing to them, because during therapy we sing. And so having them sing "Jesus loves me, this I know" to their child to console their child, I think for us brings everything full circle to the one who really called us to this job and who we do it for.
Oh, that's great. It's such an amazing message of hope during Advent. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. And thanks so much for being here with us today, Kari and Ben. We're so glad that you took the time to talk to us and tell us a little bit about TwoHope Speaks. And we just wish you many blessings and success in the work that you're doing in Uganda.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. And just a reminder to everybody else who's watching, you can register for the January series now. It's live on our website, and we'll put a link to that in the comments below. And you'll receive daily emails about each speech. And also check out the next issue of Spark for more insights from Kari and Ben. And with that, we will say goodbye for today, and we'll see you on December 16th. Take care.